Hey there, listeners, and welcome to Project Zero, where we hear the journeys of some of the best project leaders in the game. My name is Alex Tuck, and I'm the host. I'm here with AI transformation architect and psychological safety expert, Amervis López Cobb. Welcome to the podcast.
Hola, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I can't wait to hear all your Project Zero stories. I bet you have several of them. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
I'm Amervis López Cobb. I am the founder of Ascend and Transcend, which is more of a philosophy, I believe, at this point in my life than it is an organization. I'm the author of a memoir, From the Streets of Corporate America. I'm also the author of the best-selling Leading with Psychological Safety, a book that I released last year. I am a transformation architect because I've worked 25 years building project management offices that didn't just stand up templates, that actually delivered against measurable results. I managed over $95 million in project investments for a major organization. I also rescued several failing enterprise initiatives, particularly during my 15 years of fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. And so that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart because those were lessons that I was able to weave in everywhere else that I go. But here's what makes me different. I learned that most organizations and their problems aren't technology problems or process problems. They're really psychological safety problems disguised as everything else. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because for a very long time, I started looking at all the issues that I was having across different projects and all the issues that I was assessing across the project managers who reported to me, program managers who reported to me. And it all boiled down to one thing: people. And so as a result of doing that analysis, I also decided that, you know what, I'm a framework person. I've been creating framework for project management offices because there's not just one framework that works. There are multiple ways to create frameworks based on the organization's needs, their culture, their size, what their infrastructure looks like. So I said, you know what, I'm going to create a framework for psychological safety. And so I help leaders stop asking people to be heroic just to be heard. My I'm Power framework doesn't teach you to speak up more or build more confidence. It teaches you to build systems where safety doesn't require courage. And that's what I think the world needs more of. And so that's why I'm on a mission to advocate and advance psychological safety. And especially now when everything is being transformed so fast with AI. And I just want to make sure that I'm providing resources and tools that equip leaders to not leave the most important organizational asset behind: the people.
I love it. No, you don't have to be heroic to be heard.
You
I
don't have to be
love that
heroic
line,
to be heard. That's right.
So take us back a little bit, Amervis. Tell us, when did you get into project management? Was it a natural fit? Did you decide, I'm going to be a
Ah.
project manager now?
In the 90s, I worked for Prudential Insurance Company of America from 1990 to 1995. And then I joined Mercy Health Plan at the time. It was renamed so many times, like many organizations do when they do mergers and acquisitions. But 96, I had decided that I wanted to break into tech. I'd already done all the research. I was excited about technology. My first experience with technology, besides TVs and radios and things of that nature, but in a corporate environment, my first experience was because I was an at-risk youth. I ended up in a not so good situation where I grew up. I decided to drop out of high school and go to Waterston School of Business and Technology in Philadelphia, where I was born and raised in North Philadelphia. So I was introduced to Wang word processing. So before Microsoft Word, before Word Perfect, there was Wang, which was the black screen with the green neon letters. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And obviously, I couldn't just go do this. I had to get my foot in the door. And in the 90s, somebody gave me a shot. Her name was Gail Kapchak. I'll never forget. She ran the data center at the insurance company that I worked for. She saw something in me, like a lot of us see things in other people, because sometimes we need other people to shine our own light back on us and remind us, hey, we've got something here. And I broke into what they called information systems at the time. It wasn't IT. In the most coveted position, which was the computer operator role. I got exposed to everything, like to the systems, to the networks, to the firewalls, to the infrastructure, to the whole gamut. I fell in love with this thing called technology. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. But I wasn't quite sure. And I had somebody, I remember it was an AVP of the development department. I talked to him about what I wanted to do. I was always out there trying to figure out, how can I plug myself in and learn something? He said, okay, you want to be a programmer? I tried that for 2 days. I was like, oh no, I think I need something with more people interaction. And so I decided that I was going to be a project manager because somebody named Joy McDuffie, who was also another VP in the operations department, handed me the Microsoft Project 98 user guide. It was spiral bound, which tells me that it was probably photocopied and illegal. She's not here anymore. God rest her soul in peace. But she said, Amervis, this is what you should consider as far as your career path. She said, I see you naturally bringing people together, trying to figure out what the North Star is, rallying the troops to execute against the North Star. By her doing that, I started doing research and I found out there was this thing called the Project Management Institute, this organizational, globally recognized organization of best practices. And I was like, oh, so I don't have to start from scratch. I can learn how to do this based on best practice. And as you know, we have to tailor the practices. Unless you work like the Department of Defense, you're not going to implement all this stuff at one time and overwhelm people. And so that became my natural career path. From the computer operator role, somebody else saw something in me and gave me an administrative contract services position that I interviewed for. Didn't give it to me. I earned it. I was a coordinator, and then I got promoted to customer operations manager. And then I made a lateral move to government affairs compliance manager. And I just kept either moving over or moving up to get that information that I needed to become that well-rounded project manager. At the organization that I was at for almost 9 years, I wanted to build a project management office because they started to show us how to do that. I have expired my tenure there, as they say. When you can't move over and you can't move up and you can't learn anything new, it's time to leave. So I did that in Philadelphia for maybe 2 or 3 more years. But how I ended up building project management offices was I was working for AstraZeneca, a pharmaceutical in Wilmington, Delaware. And a headhunter, a recruiter, found my resume on PMI.org and said that Las Vegas, MGM at the time was called MGM Mirage, was hiring for something called Process and Governance Manager. And here was my opportunity to build my first project management office. They flew me out and I was all enamored. It was like Times Square to the fifth power with all the lights. They put me up at Treasure Island before it was removed, and they put me up at the Mirage. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to leave my old life in Philadelphia and I'm going to go be PMO project management builder in Las Vegas. As a result of doing that, I had a lot of bumps along the road because I was not just the process and governance manager, but I was also the project manager for this project where they had purchased a PPM system and the CFO wanted it deployed because it was sitting on the shelf for like a year. And she was like, hey, I need my data. So I came in and right away, I started third week of October 2006. And they were like, okay, you're here. We need this stuff deployed by January. And I was like, okay, I got to build stakeholder relationships. I got to figure out how we're going to collectively define the process for the tool because the tool doesn't stand by itself. It needs processes wrapped around it. I had learned that from before. I didn't quite get it right the first time. There were a lot of bumps, but those bumps also taught me as I integrated the lessons learned. I was like, the next time I'm going to do it a little bit differently this way. And I'm going to spend more time on the process definition with the people who are closest to the use of the tool. There was a lot to learn there. So that how did I end up building project management offices? Yeah. As you can tell, I get super excited about this topic.
I love it. I'm a fast talker too. I don't know if everyone's going to be able to keep up with us on this.
I'll try to slow down the RPM.
This stuff is exciting. No one thinks that project management's exciting unless you're a project manager, and then you get very excited about this stuff. It sounds like we're teed up to hear the Project Zero story. Tell us about that first project where you really figured out how to be a PM. What were your failures? What were your successes? Take us through that.
There were quite a few where I figured out how to be a PM, but the one that I'm going to share with you is the one where I believe was the aha moment for me, where I finally got to pull, initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing, where I was in on it at the front end versus on the back end. Before this project, there was a lot of times when a lot of decisions had already been made, or the project had failed and you needed somebody to kind of resurrect it, or it was at risk of something, like the signs were not good and you needed somebody to go, okay, we need to mitigate all these things. So this was the one where I think I got the most aha moments out of. So this one was really a major casino system opening. And the reason why it's so near and dear to me is because I had never managed a project of this size in my life. I was hired as a program manager with international game technology. I was with MGM for 5 years. I left MGM and I went to go work for international game technology. It was a global organization, so these projects were global. And they gave me the Rebel opening, which was 2,500 game machines, millions in revenue at stake. And there was no moving the scope. You can't move the scope. Here's the scope. It's what it is. This is what we sold. And by the way, the New Jersey Department of Gaming also has expectations that we meet their requirements. And also, by the way, there's no infrastructure. We're starting from scratch and you can't change the timeline. We're opening on this day. So if there was ever a project that had the most constraints that you can come across as a project manager, this was it. So this was my holy cow, I really got to pull my project management skills together here and figure out how to get this done. I gathered the team. There was 50 people across the entire organization, and I asked them to help me define the direction or how do we get it done, the strategy for it, not the things that were non-negotiable, but what's the best way to approach this. I made the mistake of thinking that I could do it linearly, like the waterfall, because I was like, hey, this seems to fit. And I hadn't really been exposed to too many agile practices up until that point. Agile was just starting to get circulated. I think it was like 90 days before we opened the doors. I started to realize the clock is ticking. I don't think we're making as much progress as we should be. I don't have an integrated PPM system like I had in other places to look at the resources, the timelines, the finance, all that information in one place. So I used my good old Excel skill sets and created Excel list on steroids. And I called in the troops and I went to my leader at the time, amazing woman. Like she knew that if I came to her, it was because I had exhausted. I tried this, I tried that, I did this, and I did that. I said, I think that we need to meet more often, but I don't want people to be upset with me. I think we need to integrate some of these agile practices because there's always that balance of being firm, but also negotiating. She said, what do you want to do? I said, I think we need stand-ups on a global scale. We need stand-ups and we need to have almost everyday check-ins of like, how many games, 25? How many have we done? How many are ready? What got done yesterday? What do we need to do tomorrow? What are the blockers that I need to go and schedule separate meetings to resolve those blockers to make progress? 90 days before go live, I scheduled those with her support because you have to have your senior leaders buy-in because when people come back and complain, as they inevitably do, you need to have backup. The aha moment came for me from stopping and listening, not just to my team, but to listening to myself. It was like, something is not right here. This is huge. And I need to go and ask for support. I did that. And my instinct was right because we made it to the opening. But I was reminded, I got to take a step back. Sometimes you have to pause. That you don't have to be the superhero of your project. You can go to your sponsors, you can go to your supporters, and you can go to people and say, this is where I'm at and this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? That made it part of the aha moment, was that true ownership comes from me feeling that we're a part of something bigger and that your inner voice, your inner guidance system could be trusted to help with key decisions and path forwards. The aha moment that was satisfying was at the end of it, when we got everything done, we met the regulator expectations, we delivered against the contract, or at least the majority of the contract terms. Exhibit E is what it was called. I remember we had the postmortem at the time, and some people find the word postmortem definitely or dying or something, but that whole what worked well and what didn't. And I didn't lead the postmortem, somebody else did. And I remember because I was working on global projects, I was late to join the call because I was working with MGM Macau China. I joined late and I got to the part where when they talked about what worked well, obviously they shared some of the complaints about having to meet every day, but then somebody else joined in and said that having schedule the daily meetings that they didn't want to have and holding everybody accountable was actually something that worked well. It was nice to see the people who weren't happy about it in the beginning chime in and realize after the fact that anybody who has taken nasty medicine, it tastes gross. But you do feel better after you take it, depending on what it is, if it won't give you all these side effects. I was one of those people that I always realized time and time again that I had an effect on the project that outlived me. I was gone, left the organization, and people still to this day talk about it. And I had a conversation with somebody that works for IGT now. Now she's a VP. And at the time, she was a product manager. We connected and she was like, I was amazed by how you understood the technical aspects of it. You were able to navigate that. And you also had some bumps in the road. I pride myself on admitting the mistakes. I'm stepping in this. I got to fix this. I got to figure out how to fix it. That project, because the organization was able to recognize revenue as a result of that particular project, tied in the massive nature of enterprise-wide project management, the sale and professional services and engineering and quality assurance. And there was practically no department that was touched by this. And it required lots of late nights, which I'm not advocating that. I'm not into burnout culture anymore. I'm believing that we could work smarter and not harder. But it was definitely one of those things where I felt like I had to be the hero, and it was not the case at all.
It sounds like you had a lot of psychological safety in there, especially with your
Yes.
leader protecting you and supporting your decisions.
Yeah.
Did you have project management mentors that you could lean on when you're like, hey, I don't know how the schedule is going to even happen? Did you
Yeah.
have any of that support, or were you just Googling, making it up as you went?
That's true. And I was doing a lot of Googling. I've always been in situations where I knew more. The people who I reported to, for the most part, they had no idea. Like,
Sure.
they'd never done this job before. Or if they did, it was very light touch. So you're absolutely right. It was a lot of Googling. If somebody's done something of this size before, there was no Chat GPT or Claude or Perplexity. Like, it was just me and the Google trying to figure out, how do I make this work? You're absolutely right. It was not something where I had somebody to go to, but I did have IGT in particular, and I'll give Stacy credit. She was decisive, and she was, yep, that sounds good. And I've done something similar before, and I think you're on the right track, and I'm going to support you. She was very collaborative in her approach.
Yep. Most of the people that I have on this show, they're either in consulting or they're in some leadership role within a PMO at an organization. And almost everyone calls their project zero the one where like they didn't have a mentor on. They might have had a mentor outside of the organization, but
Yeah.
not necessarily in the organization. That leader was a functional leader, and they were awesome. They were
Yes.
supportive, and they created this psychological safety for you to make mistakes and be the expert. It resonates so much.
And
with
if you
stories.
can't coach because you've not done the same exact thing before, but at least provide the psychological safety where somebody can feel safe to speak up, to ask questions, to throw my ideas out there. And I didn't feel like any of it was going to be used against me, or that I was going to be shut down, or that I was going to be made to feel like an idiot. I've had leaders who are very condescending in the past. They didn't know how to do it, but they were going to poo-poo on you because you were still trying to figure out how to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about mindset and growth within project management. What do you think the number one skill is that project managers need? And why do you think that's the number one skill?
Communication, without a doubt. And nothing gets done without being an effective communicator, whether that's orally or in writing. And that nuance of knowing just how much to communicate and to which audience to communicate and to which stakeholder. I've written about this. Too lengthy, too much detail. How do I strip this down to give them just the 5 bullets that they need to make the decision? How do I present this negative stuff that my team told me is an issue? How do I repackage it and rephrase it and frame it in a way where it's very clear to the executive or the sponsor or the leader that this is the issue and this is the proposed resolution and this is how much it's going to cost and this is the change impact? Communication for sure is at the top of that list because it's a delicate dance to be able to tap around and go, hey, I got to get what I need to be able to make the decisions either myself, because in some ways you as the project manager have some decision-making capacity, but also I looked at the risk issue change request processes, and I'm very analytical in that way. If I'm hearing this risk, how do I communicate this risk to the appropriate risk owner? And are we going to accept the risk? Are we going to transfer the risk? Are we going to mitigate the risk? If we make the wrong decision and if we communicate it the wrong way, they may think, oh, let's accept it. It could be that it's the wrong approach. You end up having a risk that turns into an issue. So now you've got a bigger problem because now it's not probably going to happen. It's happened. And now one of your milestones might not be met, or your entire project might be derailed. How do you communicate now that this issue requires a resolution? And you always have to go to the resolution owners with, here's an idea for how do we resolve it. Do you agree? Do you not agree? I work with the team. I communicated with the team. We have to come in and figure out how to propose a solution and be the pros and cons of the solution and have a recommendation that can make it easy for them. Here's 3 options and here's the pros and cons. How do we communicate it? It's a no-brainer. We decided to go with that and you keep it moving. Or if you don't communicate that very well, you can end up having a situation where you ignored the risk turned into an issue. Now you have an issue. Nobody makes a decision. It just sits there aging on your aging log. And now guess what? You have a change request or you have a change that you have to process. There's usually a dollar amount You either lose time or you lose money. And those are the two big ones that you have to make sure that you minimize for the organization, whether it's the organization in the department that the project is for or the broader enterprise. And the most of my experience has been projects that affect more than one department, more than one stakeholder, big impact. So communication, and I'm still working on it. Don't overwhelm your stakeholders. Give them just the right amount of information. And with AI, it just makes it so much easier now because you can leverage those tools to be able to run your thought process and have it spit out for you. I had it tell me, yeah, no, that you're not framing that right. Not in those words, but it would give me the better way to do it. And I think project managers can definitely benefit. How do I frame this and communicate this in a way for the appropriate stakeholder based on their influence to land? So now
Yeah.
we have tools that help us with that.
I actually heard of a really interesting use case. A teenager of one of my colleagues was talking about how they had social anxiety and they had a text going back and forth with their friends, and she was freaking out. She was like, what does this person mean? Interacting with ChatGPT, help me interpret what's going on here. You can do that with anything, any kind of communication. I still struggle to explain this well to new project managers, but you have to communicate a bunch of different ways to a bunch of different people, the right way at the right time with the right social context and everything. There isn't a right answer even for the same person.
Right.
You have to be there. You have to meet that person where they are that day.
The right way at the right time, that part. I love that you said where they are at that day, because I also remember being on projects where I was like, how's so-and-so feeling today? Is today shit, or is it not a good day? Because emotionally, they're not ready to receive it, knowing that. And then the telling yourself a story. I've also leveraged AI to teach myself to not tell myself stories. Because I also remember when I was younger, I started making assumptions and telling myself stories about what they think or what they're going to think. Or do I know any of this to be true? Oh, I don't know if this is true. I got to go validate the assumption. Projects start out with assumptions. These are all the things we know to be either true or false. And now we have to go and do the work of validating. Was that really true? Was that really false? AI helps with some of that storytelling that we tell ourselves from prior experiences and make sure we don't carry it into the new project as something that is fact when it's fiction or feelings.
Love it. So you gave us a taste of AI and where your head is right now with AI.
Yeah.
I'll make it more broad. How do you think AI is going to change project management in the next decade?
I think that AI is going to liberate leaders from the mundane tasks, like I said earlier, so they can focus on what machines can't do. And that's creating psychological safety and human connection. But there's a critical part. AI can also be a powerful tool for eliminating bias. I'm going to admit and go on record to say this, that when I was younger, I had a hard time with the human connection part. I just wanted to be very strategy. Here's a big picture and just get the work done. And I underestimated the significance of having that human connection one-to-one with people. And I think the AI is not going to be able to do that. I believe that this is where you can feed the AI all the tasks after everybody's agreed on what all the tasks are when they're due, and it can spit out the dashboards of what's on time, what's not on time. But what AI can't do is know what's going on with people that will affect the initiative or the project that only you can gather from having that connection. Because over time, I got to understand that the more I listened to people on projects and the more I got to know them as a person, the more I was able to talk to them. Here's a task that's late, or here's a task that's at risk, and have that human connection where they're able to tell me something. AI was not going to be able to know about how your project can get derailed and then be able to mitigate that. Because I've been looking at all the research about sentiment analysis and things of that nature. But I think it's going to be a while before we get there. I don't see organizations, at least the ones that I've experienced, making that investment in those things that we know are going to be helpful, like scanning through project records and scanning through chats and emails and getting that sentiment analysis of how people are really feeling based on what they shared during the team meeting, scanning through the team meeting transcripts, the Zoom transcripts, and going, hey, what's really happening here that can affect this project? I don't think we're going to be there. I'm excited to be there. And when I speak about biases. Like I imagine AI tracking whose expertise gets questioned, whose voices get interrupted, who receives biased language in reviews that are all tied to projects in terms of people asking the right questions. If somebody has the expertise to be able to save a project or be able to help the project go in the right direction and we don't hear them out because they're being questioned unfairly, that's something that should be addressed. Or if we're interrupting people as they talk, that's something that we can address because the AI can leverage some of that. And so I think AI can provide real-time feedback on meeting equity, bias detection in projects, and also provide trauma-informed responses because the people that are in the projects are human beings. They need to be able to feel safe enough to not have these things happen to them. And I think that the question isn't whether AI will change project leadership. I think it's whether we'll use it to code old biases into new systems. We'll finally build equitable workplaces where projects can be more successful.
It's such a good point. I agree with you completely. I tested a lot of sentiment stuff, tried to build my in my GPTs, just to analyze how am I doing? Am I shutting my mouth on meetings and letting these other people talk or not? Our biases are coded in because right now AI will say, all right, if someone doesn't have their camera on, it's because they don't want to engage, but that person might not feel comfortable being on camera. Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, I just finished that one. And he talks a lot about how when people act like we don't expect them to, we think that they're doing something wrong. That's why we think that criminals are criminals and they're actually not criminals. And we wrongly accuse them of things. It's the same thing with the meeting sentiment. I think the AI just isn't there yet. And it takes humans like you and me that are empaths as well to sort of help get AI along the way.
I'm finally coming out of the closet as a neurodivergent myself.
Yes.
I finally came out of the closet this year when it comes to that because there was a stigma associated with it.
Mhm.
And I believe that not everybody processes things the same way. So when you said the thing about the camera, that really got me thinking that you're right. They could just be having a bad day, but they could still contribute, or they could be neurodivergent and they have a hard time with eye to eye contact. Whatever the case may be, you can still get a team player or a team member to play without forcing them into the rigid old biases that the human biases that are now being programmed into the algorithm. Now, there's human algorithm and then there's the system algorithm. I'm a big proponent of making sure that you don't take old broke up processes and put them in a new system. You do value stream analysis, you do some mapping and you go, okay, this is our opportunity now to tweak the process, to take out the steps that don't add any value, to automate things that maybe could be done better. Well, let's look at our human biases and our human processes that were created based on those biases and make sure that when we leverage AI, that we're not just taking all that old, outdated command and control, I like to call it belief systems, BS, and program it in there.
We should do a whole nother talk just on AI and bias because I could talk about this all day. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Let's do that.
I think we had a great show. How can people get in contact with you?
So my website is ascend-transcend.com. And I'm also, if you need to email me, it's Amervis at ascend-transcend.com. I'm also on YouTube at Amervis Author. I'm building out my YouTube channel. I didn't realize I love the creativity part of creating videos and I'm still learning. So lots of corny stuff on there from the old days. So I'm just learning how to do it. And I get excited about leveraging Canva for video editing because before I couldn't do it with the old tools. And I'm also on LinkedIn, obviously, it's my main platform. I respond to every DM I get on LinkedIn. I think it's important, whether it's a no, thank you, I'm not buying your service, or feedback, or how do they buy my book, or anything like that. I think that it's really, really important for me to make sure that I listen to people and that I'm not at the point where people share what they're saying and that I'm not listening to them, because I've been able to inform my next book, which is coming out before Christmas, because I listen to people. People have dropped comments or dropped DM messages, or I've had coffee chats with people, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't think of it that way. I think I need to change my position based on that because I missed that perspective. I didn't look at it through that lens. I'm a big proponent of connecting with human beings, and I will make sure to respond to the best of my ability within the timing that I can to every single ask, whether it's an email or comment on YouTube or DM on LinkedIn. And of course, ascend-transcend.com is where I'm building out my website to include my next services offering. Because right now it's mainly focused on the book and podcast and speaking, but I have an opportunity to be able to be that transformation architect for other organizations, primarily Fortune 500s, nonprofits, and emerging leaders that really know that something's off and need to have someone like me help brainstorm and collaborate.
I love it.
And
And
obviously speaking, because obviously you could tell I'm
love
such
it.
an introvert and I don't like to speak.
As my kids say, connection, Amervis. I'm the same way. It might take me a little while to get back to you, but please send me DMs because I try my hardest to get back to you. And if I don't, then please follow up because I promise I want to.
That's a good point because sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry I missed that message. Please remind me. It's like,
Well, thanks so much for joining me, Amervis. It was so fun. Great insights.
thank you. Thanks for having me. And then real quick, my daughter gave me this little crystal heart for my birthday last year. So I
Oh,
always try to have it by my laptop. So when I do sign offs, I like sending a little love to the audience and to everybody and to you for having me. So little crystal heart sign off there for folks.
thank you so much. I love that little addition there. And thanks to everyone who joined us today for Project Zero. Be sure to subscribe to Project Zero wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll catch you next time with another great project leader story.